Marcus Chen sat in the back row of the Galactic Defense Academy's Advanced Weapons Theory classroom, watching the holographic displays show energy weapons from dozens of different species. The classroom held 43 beings from across the galaxy, each representing their homeworld's military traditions. Towering Vorthak warriors with their ceremonial plasma cannons, sleek Zephyrian scouts with their molecular disruptors, and graceful Etherian mystics with their psychic amplifiers. The instructor, a veteran Corthanian named Commander Vex, gestured toward the displays with one of his 4 arms. His carapace bore the scars of countless battles, and his reputation preceded him throughout the galaxy. "Every species brings their finest weapons technology to this academy," Vex announced, his translator converting his clicking mandibles into standard galactic. "Today, we will demonstrate the evolution of warfare across our civilizations." Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his seat. As the only human in the class, he knew this moment would come eventually. Earth had only recently joined the Galactic Federation, and humans were still considered primitive by most standards. While other species had spent millennia perfecting energy weapons, plasma cannons, and molecular disruptors, humans had barely mastered faster-than-light travel. "Cadet Thorn," Commander Vex called to a massive Gornak warrior whose people were known for their devastating sonic weaponry. "Please demonstrate your species' contribution to galactic warfare." Thorn stood, his rocky exterior gleaming under the classroom lights. He pulled out a device that looked like a crystalline tuning fork crossed with a cannon. "The Harmonic Devastator," he rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. "It produces sound waves capable of shattering molecular bonds at the quantum level." The class watched in awe as Thorn activated a training mode. Even at reduced power, the weapon created visible distortions in the air, and a target dummy across the room began to vibrate violently before dissolving into component atoms. Several cadets applauded, and even Commander Vex nodded approvingly. "Excellent. The Gornak sonic technology has been crucial in our battles against the Void Hunters," Vex noted. "Cadet Zix, your people's contribution?" A serpentine Naga warrior rose gracefully, her scales shifting colors as she moved. She held what appeared to be a living weapon, something that pulsed with its own heartbeat. "The bioplasma symbiont," she hissed softly. "A living weapon that bonds with its user's nervous system, capable of adapting its energy output to counter any known defensive technology." The demonstration was equally impressive. The weapon seemed to read the environment, adjusting its energy signature to bypass multiple types of shielding that Vex activated around various targets. The precision was remarkable, and Marcus found himself genuinely fascinated by the technology. One by one, cadets presented their species' weapons: quantum phase rifles that could shoot through solid matter, temporal displacement cannons that aged targets to dust, gravity manipulators that could create miniature black holes, and neural scramblers that could turn enemies into allies. Each demonstration was more spectacular than the last, showcasing technology that seemed like magic to human eyes. Marcus counted the presentations and realized with growing dread that his turn was approaching. Around him, cadets whispered among themselves, placing bets on what primitive technology the human might present. He caught fragments of their conversations through his translator. "I heard humans still use chemical explosives." "Chemical? I thought they had barely discovered nuclear fission." "Maybe he'll throw rocks. I hear that's how they hunted on their homeworld." The mockery stung, but Marcus had faced worse during his first months at the academy. Being the only representative of a species that had just discovered they weren't alone in the universe came with certain challenges. Most of his classmates weren't malicious, just genuinely puzzled by humanity's inclusion in the academy when their technology seemed so far behind. Commander Vex's attention finally turned to Marcus. "Cadet Chen," the instructor said, his mandibles clicking in what Marcus had learned was curiosity. "I confess, your species' entry into the Federation has been unique. Most civilizations achieve energy weapons before achieving faster-than-light travel. Yet here you are. What weapons technology does humanity bring to the galactic community?" The classroom fell silent. 42 alien faces turned toward Marcus, expressions ranging from genuine curiosity to barely concealed amusement. A few cadets leaned forward in their seats, apparently expecting entertainment rather than education. Marcus stood slowly, his mind racing. The truth was that humans had brought no advanced weapons technology to the Federation. Earth's most sophisticated weapons were barely beyond projectile-based systems with some energy components. Compared to the quantum-level sophistication he had just witnessed, human weapons seemed like toys. "Well, Cadet," Commander Vex prompted, "perhaps you have brought a demonstration weapon?" "Actually, sir," Marcus said carefully, "I didn't bring a weapon with me." A few snickers rippled through the classroom. Cadet Thorne's rocky features shifted into what might have been a smile. "Did you forget, human, or does your species not possess weapons worthy of demonstration?" Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks, but he kept his voice steady. "We possess weapons, Cadet Thorne. But I believe the instructor asked for a demonstration of weapons technology, not weapons themselves." Commander Vex's mandibles clicked more rapidly. "An interesting distinction. Are you suggesting you can demonstrate human weapons technology without a weapon?" "If you'll permit me, sir, yes." The classroom buzzed with whispered conversations. Marcus caught fragments again, most expressing doubt that he could produce anything impressive without advanced equipment. "Very well, Cadet Chen," Commander Vex said, settling back in his instructor's chair. "The floor is yours. Show us what human weapons technology can accomplish." Marcus looked around the classroom, taking inventory of available materials. Standard galactic furniture was designed to be functional across multiple species, which meant it was built to be both sturdy and modular. The desks were made of a polymer composite, the chairs had metal framework, and various educational tools were scattered throughout the room. "Sir, would it be acceptable if I used classroom materials for this demonstration?" "Classroom materials?" Commander Vex seemed genuinely puzzled. "You intend to construct a weapon from furniture?" "In a manner of speaking, yes, sir." A Zephyrian cadet named Chris spoke up, her voice musical even through the translator. "Commander, surely this is not appropriate. Weapons construction should require sophisticated manufacturing facilities, not academic furniture." "I am curious to see what Cadet Chen has in mind," Vex replied. "You may proceed, human, but I expect a genuine demonstration of technology, not mere improvisation." Marcus nodded and began examining the classroom more carefully. He approached one of the desks and tested its construction, finding that the polymer surface was flexible but strong. The support struts were made of a lightweight metal alloy that had some give to it. Perfect. Human weapons technology, Marcus began as he worked, evolved differently from most galactic civilizations. While many species developed energy-based weapons early in their technological advancement, humans spent thousands of years perfecting what we call kinetic weapon systems. He carefully detached one of the metal struts from a desk, testing its flexibility. The metal was similar to spring steel in its properties, though likely much more advanced in composition. Kinetic weapons rely on transferring physical force to a target rather than energy discharge. "Primitive projectiles," scoffed a Etherian cadet whose people had transcended physical weapons millennia ago. "We studied such weapons in our historical archives." "Perhaps," Marcus said, continuing his work, "but the principles behind kinetic weapons led to some interesting technological developments." He moved to another desk and began carefully removing a section of the polymer surface. The material was tough, but could be worked with patience and the right technique. His academy training had included basic materials science, and he recognized that this polymer was actually quite sophisticated, despite being used for furniture. "What exactly are you constructing?" Commander Vex asked, genuine curiosity in his voice now. "A bow." "Sir?" The silence that followed was profound. Marcus looked up to see expressions of confusion and, in some cases, outright disbelief. "A bow?" Cadet Thorne rumbled. "You mean to demonstrate ancient hunting tools?" "I mean to demonstrate the technological principles that those hunting tools represent," Marcus corrected. "May I continue?" Commander Vex gestured for him to proceed, though the instructor's mandibles were clicking in what Marcus was learning to recognize as deep thought. Marcus worked methodically, shaping the polymer into what would serve as arrows and fashioning string from fibrous components he found in the chair cushions. The process was meditative in a way, and he found himself explaining as he worked. "The bow represents one of humanity's earliest examples of stored energy technology," he said, carefully notching the makeshift string to the flexible metal strut that would serve as the bow itself. The archer transfers energy to the system by drawing the string, which stores that energy in the flexed material. When released, the stored energy transfers to the projectile. A few cadets had moved closer to watch his work, apparently fascinated despite themselves. The Naga cadet, Zix, tilted her head in a gesture Marcus had learned indicated curiosity among her people. "But surely," Zix said, "this is less efficient than direct energy transfer. My symbiont weapon channels energy directly from my nervous system to the target." "For immediate energy transfer, absolutely," Marcus agreed, testing the tension of his improvised bow. "But consider the implications of the technology. The bow allows a relatively weak individual to store and release energy far beyond their immediate physical capacity." He selected one of his improvised arrows, a straight section of polymer that he had balanced and weighted as best he could with available materials. "More importantly, it demonstrates what human engineers call force multiplication through mechanical advantage." Marcus drew the bow experimentally, feeling the tension build in the improvised string and the flex in the metal limb. It wasn't perfect, but it would serve for demonstration purposes. "Force multiplication," Commander Vex repeated. "Explain this concept." "A human archer can draw perhaps 50 kilograms of force for a fraction of a second," Marcus said, holding the bow at half-draw. "But that force, stored in the bow's elastic energy and released over the arrow's acceleration length, can drive a projectile with enough force to penetrate armor that the human could never hope to damage with direct physical force." He aimed at a reinforced target dummy that had been used earlier for energy weapon demonstrations. The dummy was designed to absorb and display the effects of various types of attacks. "Of course," Marcus continued, "this is just the beginning of the technological progression. Understanding stored energy and force multiplication led humans to develop more sophisticated kinetic weapons, catapults, ballistae, eventually firearms, and finally our current railguns and mass drivers." Some of the mockery was fading from his classmates' faces, replaced by genuine attention. Even Cadet Thorne was leaning forward in his chair. "But how does this compare to energy weapons?" asked Chris the Zephyrian. "Our molecular disruptors can eliminate targets at the quantum level." Marcus smiled. "Different applications for different situations. Energy weapons are excellent for many purposes, but kinetic weapons have some interesting advantages." He drew the bow to full draw, feeling the maximum tension he could achieve with the improvised materials. "Energy weapons require power sources, sophisticated focusing systems, and often exotic materials. A kinetic weapon can be built from almost anything, requires no external power, and is virtually impossible to jam or disable electronically." The classroom was completely silent now. Even Commander Vex was watching intently. "Additionally," Marcus said, "kinetic weapons transfer momentum to their targets. Energy weapons might vaporize a section of an enemy ship's hull, but a kinetic projectile can physically move that ship, alter its trajectory, or transfer damaging shock waves throughout its structure. He took careful aim at the target dummy. Finally, kinetic weapons are limited only by the amount of energy you can store in the system and the durability of your projectile. In theory, there's no upper limit to the destructive potential. Marcus released the arrow. The improvised arrow struck the target dummy with a sharp crack that echoed through the silent classroom. The reinforced training target, designed to withstand energy weapons that could vaporize steel, rocked backward on its base. A visible crack appeared where the polymer projectile had struck, spider webbing outward from the impact point. The silence stretched for several heartbeats before Commander Vex stood and approached the target. His forearms moved over the damage, mandibles clicking rapidly as he examined the impact site. "Fascinating," he murmured. "The target's surface is designed to absorb and disperse energy attacks, but this physical impact has created structural damage." Cadet Thorne's rocky features showed genuine surprise. "But it's just furniture scraps," he rumbled. "How did it penetrate a military-grade target?" Marcus lowered the bow, but kept his explanation calm and measured. "The target's defenses are optimized for energy dispersal, not kinetic impact. My arrow transferred all its momentum directly to a small surface area. The target had no way to redirect or absorb that physical force." A murmur of discussion rippled through the classroom as cadets began to grasp the implications. Cadet Zix, the Naga warrior, slithered closer to examine both the bow and the target. "Your projectile was not sophisticated," she observed. "No guidance systems, no explosive payload, no molecular disruptors. Yet it achieved what our weapons could not: actual structural damage to the target." "That's the beauty of kinetic weapons," Marcus said, running his hand along the improvised bow. "Simplicity can be a strength rather than a weakness. No complex systems to malfunction, no exotic materials to maintain, no power requirements beyond what the operator can provide." Commander Vex returned to his position, but Marcus could see the instructor's entire demeanor had changed. Where before there had been polite curiosity mixed with skepticism, now there was intense professional interest. "Cadet Chen," Vex said, "you mentioned that this bow represents early human kinetic technology. How did your species develop these principles further?" Marcus set the bow aside carefully. "We scaled up, sir. If a single human can store and release enough energy to drive an arrow through armor, imagine what happens when you apply the same principles to larger systems." He moved to the classroom's holographic display system, requesting permission to access the historical databases. "May I show some examples from human military history?" "Proceed," Vex said immediately. Marcus called up images of ancient siege weapons, and gasps echoed through the room. The holographic trebuchet appeared massive next to human figures, its wooden arm stretching high above the projection field. "This is a trebuchet," Marcus explained. "Same basic principle as the bow, but scaled up. Instead of human muscle power, it uses counterweights and gravity to store and release energy. These weapons could throw stones weighing over 300 kilograms across distances of several kilometers." The alien cadet stared at the display, clearly struggling to comprehend the implications. A Etherian cadet named Lon spoke up, his psychic amplifier flickering with confused energy patterns. "But the materials, wood and metal, stone, projectiles, how could such primitive components create effective weapons?" "Because the principles are sound regardless of the materials," Marcus replied, switching the display to show impact calculations. "Physics doesn't care whether your weapon is made of advanced composites or wood and iron. Kinetic energy equals half mass times velocity squared. Increase either the mass of the projectile or its velocity, and you increase the destructive potential exponentially." He changed the display again, showing the evolution of human firearms. Humans eventually learned to use chemical reactions to accelerate projectiles. Gunpowder provided much more energy storage than mechanical systems, allowing for smaller, more portable weapons with greater range and impact. The progression from simple muskets to modern assault rifles fascinated his classmates. But Marcus wasn't finished. Eventually, we developed electromagnetic acceleration systems, railguns and mass drivers that could accelerate projectiles to significant fractions of light speed. Commander Vex's mandibles clicked so rapidly they sounded like static. "Light-speed projectiles," he said slowly. "You're describing weapons that could theoretically deliver relativistic kinetic energy." "Not just theoretically, sir." Marcus called up classified schematics that his security clearance allowed him to access. Humanity's defense platforms include mass drivers capable of accelerating tungsten projectiles to 10% of light speed. The kinetic energy release from such a projectile striking a target is equivalent to nuclear weapons, but without radiation, electromagnetic pulse, or any of the other side effects of energy weapons. The classroom erupted in excited conversation. Several cadets were rapidly calculating the energy levels Marcus described, their expressions showing growing amazement and concern. Cadet Chris, the Zephyrian scout, raised her hand for attention. "But surely such weapons have limitations. Range, accuracy, power requirements." "Excellent questions," Marcus said. "Range is actually one of the major advantages. In space, a kinetic projectile will travel in a straight line until it hits something. No energy beam dispersion, no particle decay, no interference from electromagnetic fields. A railgun projectile fired in space will retain its velocity and destructive potential across interstellar distances." He paused to let that sink in. "Accuracy depends on targeting systems, just like any weapon. But because kinetic projectiles are unaffected by energy shields, electronic countermeasures, or most defensive technologies, hitting the target is often sufficient for mission success." "And power requirements?" pressed Cadet Thorne. "That's where human engineering becomes interesting," Marcus said with a slight smile. "Yes, charging a railgun requires enormous amounts of energy. But unlike energy weapons that must generate, focus, and project energy continuously, kinetic weapons store energy and release it in a single burst. The power requirements are front-loaded." He switched the display to show human ships with their distinctive weapon arrays. Human warships often carry banks of capacitors and rotating kinetic weapon systems. While one railgun is charging, others can fire. The result is sustained kinetic bombardment capability that doesn't require exotic power cores or antimatter containment systems. Commander Vex was studying the schematics intently. "These human ship designs are unusual. Most galactic civilizations focus on energy weapon arrays with supporting defensive systems. But your ships appear to be built around kinetic weapons platforms." "Yes, sir," Marcus confirmed. "Human naval doctrine evolved around the principle that the best defense is often a good offense. Our ships are designed to deliver overwhelming kinetic strikes that can disable enemy vessels before they can effectively return fire." A new voice entered the conversation. Cadet Moore, a crystalline being from a species known for their defensive technologies, had been silent throughout the demonstration. "But surely," Moore chimed like wind through crystal formations, "energy shields and defensive barriers make kinetic weapons obsolete. Our phase shift barriers can redirect energy attacks completely." Marcus nodded respectfully. "Phase shift barriers are impressive technology. I've seen them redirect plasma streams and deflect particle beams with remarkable efficiency. But they work by manipulating energy fields and electromagnetic frequencies." He called up a new display showing weapon interaction simulations. "A kinetic projectile doesn't emit energy fields to manipulate. It's just mass moving at velocity. Phase shift barriers can't redirect something they can't interact with electromagnetically." The simulation showed a tungsten penetrator passing through various defensive shields as if they weren't there, while energy weapons were successfully deflected by the same defenses. "Moreover," Marcus continued, Kinetic weapons create secondary effects that energy weapons often don't. When a high-velocity projectile strikes a ship, it doesn't just damage the immediate impact site. The kinetic shockwave travels through the entire structure, potentially damaging systems throughout the vessel. Cadet Zix was studying the simulations with intense interest. Your kinetic weapons bypass our defensive technologies and create damage patterns our ships aren't designed to handle, she said slowly. This is why humanity was invited to join the Federation despite your relatively primitive energy technology. Marcus felt a moment of pride, but kept his response measured. Humanity brings a different perspective to galactic warfare. Yes. But that doesn't mean our way is better, just different. Each species' approach to weapons technology has shaped their military doctrine and ship design in unique ways. Commander Vex approached the display, manipulating the controls to examine the human ship schematics more closely. Cadet Chen, these designs suggest that human weapons technology emphasizes simplicity and reliability over sophistication. Is this accurate? Generally speaking, yes, sir, Marcus replied. Human military philosophy tends toward the principle that complex systems have more potential failure points. We prefer weapons that function reliably under adverse conditions, are easy to maintain and repair, and don't require exotic materials or specialized support systems. He gestured toward the improvised bow still sitting on the demonstration table. Like the bow I built today, most human weapons can be constructed or repaired using common materials and basic tools. A human marine stranded on a hostile world could potentially fabricate effective weapons from local resources. Cadet Lon's psychic amplifier was pulsing with what Marcus had learned was deep thought among Etherians. This is a fundamentally different approach to military technology, Lon said. Most civilizations advance by creating increasingly sophisticated systems. Humans seem to advance by perfecting simple systems. Both approaches have merit, Marcus said diplomatically. Sophisticated energy weapons offer capabilities that kinetic weapons simply can't match. Precision targeting, variable power output, non-lethal options, the ability to engage multiple targets simultaneously. Human kinetic weapons are powerful but crude by comparison. Commander Vex had been quiet for several minutes, studying the data displays and occasionally clicking his mandibles in rapid patterns. Finally, he turned to address the entire classroom. "Class," he announced, "I believe we have witnessed something significant today. Cadet Chen has demonstrated that weapons technology isn't simply about who has the most advanced energy output or the most sophisticated targeting systems." The instructor gestured toward the damaged target dummy. Effective weapons technology must consider the operational environment, available resources, maintenance requirements, and tactical applications. Human kinetic weapons represent a completely different design philosophy that nonetheless achieves remarkable results. Marcus felt a warmth of validation. But Commander Vex wasn't finished. "However," Vex continued, "this raises important questions about how our different weapons technologies might interact in combined operations. If humans are to serve alongside other Federation species, we need to understand how kinetic weapons integrate with energy-based tactical systems." The instructor's attention returned to Marcus. "Cadet Chen, I would like you to prepare a detailed analysis of human weapons integration with standard Federation military doctrines. This will be your major project for this term." Marcus straightened to attention. "Yes, sir. Should I focus on any particular aspect of integration?" "All aspects," Commander Vex replied, with what Marcus was learning to recognize as an instructor's smile. "Ship-to-ship combat, ground operations, combined arms tactics, logistical support, and maintenance requirements. I want a comprehensive study of how human kinetic weapons can enhance Federation military capabilities." The classroom had erupted in excited discussion again, with cadets from different species comparing their weapons technologies and speculating about combined operations. Several approached Marcus directly, asking detailed questions about human military engineering and tactical doctrine. Cadet Thorn's heavy footsteps approached, and Marcus turned to face the massive Gornak warrior. "Human," Thorn rumbled, "I owe you an apology. I underestimated your species' contribution to galactic warfare." "No apology necessary," Marcus replied. "Your sonic weapons are far more sophisticated than anything humanity has developed. Each species brings unique strengths to the Federation." Thorn's rocky features shifted into what might have been a grin. "Perhaps, but I would be interested in seeing what happens when Gornak's sonic technology combines with human kinetic principles, sound waves to disrupt molecular bonds, followed by kinetic impact to exploit the structural weakness." The idea was intriguing, and Marcus found himself considering the possibilities. That could be devastatingly effective. Sonic disruption to soften targets, then kinetic penetration to deliver payloads deep inside damaged structures. As the class period ended and cadets began filing out, Marcus realized something important had changed. Where before he had been seen as the primitive human struggling to keep up with advanced galactic civilizations, he was now viewed as a specialist bringing unique expertise to the Federation's military capabilities. But more importantly, the other cadets were beginning to see beyond their own species' technologies, considering how different approaches might complement each other. That kind of innovative thinking could be the key to the Federation's success against external threats. Marcus carefully disassembled his improvised bow, returning the classroom materials to their proper configurations. But as he worked, his mind was already racing ahead to the integration project Commander Vex had assigned. The possibilities were endless, and for the first time since arriving at the Academy, Marcus felt like humanity truly belonged among the stars. 3 weeks later, Marcus stood before a packed auditorium at the Galactic Defense Academy. Word of his kinetic weapons demonstration had spread throughout the institution, and what started as a simple class project had evolved into a formal presentation to the Academy's senior staff. The audience included not only instructors and advanced cadets, but also military advisors from across the Federation. Admiral Koreth, the Academy's commandant, and a legendary Vorthak warrior sat in the front row beside Fleet Commander Nexus, whose Zephyrian tactical innovations had revolutionized space combat doctrine. Behind them sat representatives from a dozen different species, all eager to understand how human weapons technology might enhance Federation military capabilities. "Cadets and distinguished guests," Marcus began, his voice carrying clearly through the auditorium's advanced acoustics. 3 weeks ago, I built a bow from classroom furniture to demonstrate human kinetic weapons technology. Today I want to share what we've learned about integrating those principles with Federation military systems. The main display activated, showing a holographic representation of a combined human Federation fleet. The ships were a mixture of familiar Federation designs enhanced with human kinetic weapon systems, creating hybrid vessels that looked both elegant and menacing. "The key insight from our research," Marcus continued, "is that human kinetic weapons don't replace existing Federation technology. They enhance it. Each species' weapon systems address different tactical requirements, and combining them creates capabilities that exceed what any single approach can achieve." He gestured toward the display, highlighting a modified Etherian cruiser. "Consider Etherian psychic amplification technology. Their weapons can disable enemy crews without damaging ships, allowing for capture rather than destruction. But psychic attacks require precise targeting and can be blocked by mental shielding." The display showed the Etherian cruiser engaging a hostile vessel. Psychic energy reached out toward the enemy ship, but was deflected by some form of mental barrier. Now observe what happens when we add human kinetic support. A railgun installation on the cruiser's hull activated, sending a projectile toward the enemy vessel. The kinetic impact creates massive shock waves throughout the enemy ship, Crew members are thrown off balance, their concentration broken, mental defenses disrupted. The second psychic attack penetrated the enemy's defenses easily, and the hostile vessel was captured intact. The kinetic weapon didn't destroy the target, Marcus explained. It simply created optimal conditions for the psychic weapon to function. This is force multiplication through technological synergy. Admiral Koreth leaned forward, his plasma cannon scars glowing with interest. "Show us Vorthak applications," he commanded in his booming voice. Marcus nodded respectfully. Vorthak plasma technology represents some of the most sophisticated energy weapons in the galaxy. Tremendous destructive power, excellent range, and the ability to adjust output from stunning to vaporization. The display shifted to show a Vorthak dreadnought, its hull bristling with plasma cannon arrays. But plasma weapons have one limitation. They require direct line of sight to target. Obstacles, cover, and defensive positioning can limit their effectiveness. A tactical scenario played out on the display, showing enemy vessels hiding behind asteroid fields and using terrain to break targeting locks. Human kinetic weapons excel at indirect fire, Marcus continued. Railgun projectiles can be programmed to follow ballistic trajectories, ricocheting off surfaces or using gravitational slingshots to strike targets behind cover. The modified Vorthak ship demonstrated the concept, launching kinetic projectiles that curved around asteroids and struck hidden enemies. The impacts drove the hostile vessels from cover directly into the plasma cannon firing solutions. Again, the kinetic weapons don't replace the plasma cannons, Marcus emphasized. They force enemies into positions where plasma weapons can be most effective. Each system enables the other. Fleet Commander Nexus spoke up, her musical voice carrying clearly through the auditorium. "What about Zephyrian molecular disruptors? Our weapons operate at the quantum level." "Quantum-level weapons represent the ultimate in precision," Marcus acknowledged. Zephyrian disruptors can eliminate specific molecular bonds while leaving surrounding material intact. Surgical strike capability that no other species has achieved. The display showed a Zephyrian stealth ship using molecular disruptors to selectively damage enemy vessel systems without destroying the ships themselves. But quantum weapons require enormous computational power to target specific molecular structures, Marcus continued. The targeting systems are sophisticated but fragile and can be disrupted by electromagnetic interference or rapid movement. A kinetic weapon demonstration showed tungsten penetrators creating massive electromagnetic pulses on impact, scrambling enemy electronic systems. Human kinetic impacts generate natural electromagnetic effects that can disable enemy countermeasures and jamming systems, Marcus explained. This creates clean targeting environments where Zephyrian quantum weapons can operate with maximum precision. The audience was completely focused now, watching as the tactical simulations demonstrated increasingly complex combinations of weapons technologies. Marcus could see the moment when many of them truly grasped the implications. Commander Vex, who had been taking detailed notes throughout the presentation, raised his hand for attention. "Cadet Chen, these synergistic effects are impressive in simulation, but have you tested these concepts practically?" Marcus smiled. "Yes, sir. With the Academy's permission, I arranged testing with volunteer cadets from multiple species." The display switched to show recordings from the Academy's Advanced Combat Training Facility. Teams of cadets from different species worked together, their various weapons technologies creating devastating combined effects. Cadet Thorne's sonic weapons proved particularly effective when combined with human kinetic systems, Marcus reported. Sonic disruption weakens molecular bonds in enemy armor, while kinetic impacts exploit those weakened structures for penetration far beyond what either weapon could achieve alone. The recording showed Gornak's sonic weapons creating visible stress patterns in target materials, followed by kinetic projectiles that punched through defenses that had easily resisted either weapon type individually. Cadet Zix's bioplasma symbiont adapted its energy signature to complement kinetic shock waves, Marcus continued. The living weapon learned to synchronize its attacks with kinetic impacts, creating resonance effects that amplified both energy and kinetic damage. Several cadets in the audience began whispering excitedly as they recognized classmates in the combat recordings. But Admiral Koreth called for attention. "These are impressive results against training targets," the Admiral rumbled. "But how would such tactics perform against real threats? The Void Hunters, for instance, or the Crimson Fleet?" Marcus had been hoping for this question. "Admiral, our analysis suggests that combined kinetic energy tactics would be highly effective against both known threats." The display showed intelligence assessments of Void Hunter vessels and Crimson Fleet battle formations. Void Hunter technology focuses on energy absorption and redirection, Marcus explained. Their ships can consume directed energy attacks and use that power to enhance their own capabilities. But kinetic weapons transfer momentum rather than energy, creating damage patterns Void Hunter technology isn't designed to counter. The tactical simulation showed Federation ships engaging Void Hunter vessels. Traditional energy weapons were absorbed by the alien ships, making them stronger. But kinetic impacts bypassed the absorption systems entirely, creating critical damage that prevented the Void Hunters from absorbing additional energy attacks. The Crimson Fleet relies on swarming tactics and overwhelming numbers, Marcus continued. Their individual ships are lightly armored but fast and maneuverable. Traditional energy weapons struggle to engage multiple fast-moving targets simultaneously. The display showed Crimson Fleet raiders darting between Federation ships, their speed making them difficult targets for conventional weapons. But kinetic weapons can create area denial effects, Marcus demonstrated. Fragmenting projectiles, chain shot, and proximity detonations can clear entire regions of space, forcing enemy swarms to break formation or suffer massive casualties. The simulation showed human kinetic weapons creating deadly fields of debris and shrapnel that shredded Crimson Fleet formations, allowing Federation energy weapons to engage the scattered survivors. Fleet Commander Nexus was studying the displays intently. "You're proposing a fundamental shift in Federation military doctrine," she observed. "Moving from species-specific weapons platforms to integrated multi-technology systems." "Yes, ma'am," Marcus confirmed. "But the benefits extend beyond pure combat effectiveness. Integrated systems also provide operational redundancy and logistical advantages." He switched the display to show supply chain analyses. Currently, Federation fleets require specialized support for each species' weapons technology. Etherian psychic amplifiers need psionic crystals, Vorthak plasma cannons require exotic matter containment, Zephyrian quantum weapons depend on computational cores. The complexity was staggering. Dozens of different supply requirements, maintenance protocols, and technical specializations. Human kinetic weapons use common materials, metals, composites, basic electronics. These can be manufactured anywhere with standard industrial capabilities, Marcus explained. Adding kinetic systems to Federation ships reduces their dependence on specialized supplies while increasing their combat capabilities. Admiral Koreth stood, his massive frame commanding immediate attention. "Cadet Chen, you propose that we retrofit the entire Federation fleet with human weapons technology?" "Not retrofit, sir," Marcus clarified quickly. "Evolve. New ship designs that integrate multiple weapons technologies from the start, creating vessels optimized for combined operations rather than single-species tactics." The display showed conceptual designs for next-generation Federation ships. Sleek Zephyrian lines incorporated Vorthak plasma arrays and human kinetic systems. Massive Gornak hulls mounted Etherian psychic amplifiers alongside human railguns. Each design represented a fusion of technologies that created capabilities exceeding the sum of its parts. "These aren't human ships with alien weapons, or alien ships with human weapons," Marcus emphasized. "They're Federation ships that represent all our peoples working together." The auditorium fell silent as the implications sank in. What Marcus was proposing represented more than just military innovation. It was a new model for cooperation between species that had previously worked in parallel rather than true integration. Commander Vex was the first to speak. The technical challenges would be enormous, integrating weapon systems designed by different species, with different power requirements, targeting protocols, and tactical doctrines. Yes, sir, Marcus agreed. But the Academy exists to train officers for exactly these challenges. And we've already proven that cadets from different species can work together to create effective combined tactics. He gestured toward the cadets in the audience. Cadet Thorn, Cadet Zix, Cadet Chris, Cadet Lon, they've all demonstrated that species boundaries don't have to limit tactical innovation. What we need now is the infrastructure to support their innovations. Admiral Koreth had been silent for several minutes, clearly weighing the proposal. Finally, he spoke. The Federation faces threats that no single species could handle alone. The Void Hunters consume energy on a scale that makes them nearly immune to traditional weapons. The Crimson Fleet fields numbers that overwhelm conventional tactics. His scarred features showed the weight of command decisions. If integrated weapons technology can provide advantages against these threats, then we have a responsibility to explore those possibilities. The Admiral's attention focused on Marcus. Cadet Chen, I am authorizing a full feasibility study of integrated Federation weapons systems. You will work with a team of senior cadets from multiple species to develop practical prototypes and testing protocols. Marcus felt a surge of excitement mixed with overwhelming responsibility. Sir, I'm honored, but this project is far beyond what any single cadet should undertake. Which is why you won't be working alone, Admiral Koreth replied. Commander Vex will serve as project supervisor. Fleet Commander Nexus will provide tactical consultation, and you'll have access to any cadets who volunteer to join the integration project. Nearly half the cadets in the auditorium immediately stood, volunteering for the project. Marcus saw Thorn, Zix, Chris, Lon, and dozens of others whose eyes burned with the same excitement he felt. The galaxy is changing, Admiral Koreth continued. New threats require new solutions. The Federation's strength has always been our diversity, different species bringing different capabilities to common challenges. Perhaps it's time we fully embrace that diversity. As the presentation concluded and cadets began filing out, Marcus found himself surrounded by volunteers eager to contribute to the integration project. The improvised bow that had started everything was long since disassembled, but its legacy was about to reshape the Federation's approach to warfare. Cadet Thorn approached, his massive form somehow conveying enthusiasm despite his rocky features. Human, I believe we are about to make history. All of us together, Marcus replied, looking around at the diverse group of cadets who would become the first truly integrated Federation weapons development team. That's what makes it possible. For the first time since leaving Earth, Marcus felt like humanity wasn't just joining galactic civilization. They were helping to transform it into something greater than any single species could achieve alone. The stars no longer seemed like places humans were visiting, but like a home they were building alongside their new allies. The trainer had requested a weapons demonstration. In the end, Marcus had demonstrated something far more powerful than any single weapon: the potential for unity through diversity and the strength that came from combining different approaches to common challenges. The future of the Federation looked brighter than ever, and humans would be partners in building it.